Hi, my name is Joe and welcome to another edition of Joe's Technology. Today I'm at PCPartPicker.com because I'm going to help a friend out by recommending the hardware for a DIY PC. And my friend approached me today and he said, Joe, I need help picking parts for a computer for my wife. I said, alright, that's fine. What is the intended purpose of the computer? That's the most important question that we have to answer, because whatever the computer's purpose determines what hardware it receives. So he replied at first, he said, well, it just needs to be able to play WoW. And I said, World of Warcraft? That's it? You don't play anything else? He's like, no, just WoW. I said, alright, well, you'll be able to get away with a very inexpensive computer. You know, you'll be off the hook here pretty cheaply. And then he thought about it and he's like, well, but she also needs to be able to edit, art stuff. You know, she does drawing and, photo editing and things like that. And I said, alright, give me an idea. And so he named a few applications. And I said, what's the biggest file she's ever edited? And he said, well, about 400 megs. I was like, you know what? You just added money for storage. So, no little, single terabyte cheapo. We're talking 2 terabytes and higher, and probably multiple drives. And he agreed. So then I asked him, I said, any other requirements? He's like, well, she'd like to be able to drive 3 monitors. I was like, well, you just added money to your GPU. So, alright, a GPU that can drive 3 monitors. And then I was thinking, well, what kind of resolution are we talking about? He says, well, probably at least 1080p. I said, oh, okay. So at the very least 1080p. And he said, oh, by the way, and she wants to be able to stream at 1080p. I was like, more money. Now you're going to be adding money for your processing power, because you're going to be able to crunch all the video feed in real time and then spit it out. While at the same time running those applications, because presumably she's not just going to sit in front of the camera and say hi to the internet. She's probably going to want to demonstrate those very expensive and memory-hungry graphic editing tools in her live stream. So I felt I had the information that we needed, and it's now time to put together a recommended system build. PCPartPicker.com, if you're not familiar with it, is a vendor-neutral site that allows you to choose hardware that's currently available from multiple manufacturers and make recommendations about where you can get it for the lowest price, and even advise you as to whether or not you've picked hardware that conflicts and is not compatible with one another. So it makes a good site for both beginners and veterans to self-check yourself, make sure that you're putting together the right parts, and sometimes it can notify you of combo deals to save you money that you otherwise might not be aware of. So I do recommend PCPartPicker.com. They're not a sponsor of my channel. In fact, I have no sponsors. So all the hardware that I recommend is stuff that I've used myself. So I'm not being paid to tell you what's good here. So this is the stuff that I would buy, and in many cases have. Now, because we're talking about a computer that needs to be able to crunch 1080p video for a live stream, we can't have any problems with hiccups or the thing getting busy and not keeping up with the video. So I'm just going to recommend only one processor. The Intel Core i7-4790K is part of the recent Devil's Canyon Haswell refresh. So this is a 4 gigahertz CPU. It's got quad cores, hyper-threading, all the features that we've come to expect from the i7 line. Basically as good a desktop processor you can get without going into the Xeon series. So this should have no problems running any application that his wife wants to run, and be able to crunch all the video and keep up with the live stream so that everybody will be able to see her desktop, because the internet's pretty unforgiving. If you have a bad compression or the resolution's low or everything's choppy, and you could have the best computer in the world when your ISP could still stand you in the back. I know from experience. My ISP hates me. But let's cross our fingers and hopefully they have a good ISP. Now, heat is death to this CPU, because it's going to be able to do all these wonderful things, but only if it's cool enough to operate within its normal operating temperature range. So there are many different CPU coolers. We're just going to skip them all and recommend the Noctua NH-D15. I've actually bought one of these myself. It's a humongous radiator. It probably dissipates more heat than many water-cooled systems do, and it does it quietly. It's not cheap. It's very expensive, but compared to something like a Hyper 212 Evo from Cooler Master, those things are pretty dirt cheap. But it is extremely reliable in terms of how much it's able to dissipate. I have a 4790K myself. This is the cooler that I personally use. In fact, I'll even link a video demonstrating. I wanted to see how loud this thing was when it was running, because it looks like a little jet engine in there. But surprisingly, Noctua has some very, very quiet fans that they're able to team up with that thing. I had to reconfigure their positions because their default positions didn't fit with the high-profile memory that I chose, but I got both of them in there and I'm able to run them both. So my system stays nice and cool with that dual radiator stack that the NH-D15 comes with. It's absolutely worth the money. Speaking of being worth the money, if we have a really great processor and we keep it really cool so that it's able to operate reliably and generate our live stream, none of that matters if we have a terrible motherboard. So we need something that's going to keep up with us, that's again not going to be susceptible to heat. It's going to be able to take a beating, because on a live stream, reboots are death. Lag internally in the system is death. So the Gigabyte the GA Z97X UD5H BK is part of their Black Edition motherboard line. The Black Edition boards are significant in that as they're built at the factory, they get all the best components, and then they go into this sweat box where they run continuously for a week. Bitcoin mining, that's how Gigabyte beats them up to try them out. And so they run continuously for a week at, I think it's something like, I think it's like 80 degrees in there, probably 80 degrees Fahrenheit all the time. And they just run 24 hours a day, and the motherboards that survive are the ones that Gigabyte sells to you. So they've already burned in these boards and certified that they're going to be able to give you workstation level performance. And then it has really nice features like M.2 on it, plenty of SATA 3 connectors, so it's a very good board overall. Plus, if you register your board with Gigabyte, you can get a 5-year warranty. If I'm live streaming, I just don't mess around. So when I bought my 4790K, this is the motherboard that I put it on. As for memory, again, there are many different memory manufacturers, but one that has just never given me any problems, it's not that they pay me to say it, so I keep buying their stuff, has been Corsair. The Corsair Vengeance memory is very popular among gamers, but it works just as well for applications. Here's where we can actually save a little bit of money. You'll notice that I've chosen a DDR3 1866 memory, so these are 204-pin DIMMs that will fit into our motherboard. And it's two 8GB sticks for a total of 16 gigs of RAM. The reason I chose 16 is so that we have plenty of plenty of desktop memory for all these applications. So if you're sitting there with a whole bunch of textures and graphics and for your application running as you're doing your editing, this is what you need. In a live stream, nothing would be worse than running out of memory, and then it's time to start using swap file space, which is so much slower to read data off the hard drive than it is to read it out of memory. It's not a bad thing to have more. So I definitely recommend 16 gigs of RAM. Some people will say that it's overkill, but if you've ever been in a situation where your applications were starved for RAM, nothing is worse than seeing that big, powerful processor sit there and wait for data to be swapped in and out of a swap file. It's terrible. And memory is really not that expensive. You're going to be staring at this computer for a very long time, so don't cheap out on the memory. Otherwise, you'll be sitting there watching stuttering and drops and other problems for years and wondering why you couldn't spend just a little bit more to get the memory that you knew you needed. It's not worth it. Just buy the RAM. And the good thing is that the applications aren't really going to know the difference between 1866 memory and some crazily overclocked. I think this motherboard will support up to, well, here, let's see, I'll refresh my memory, because to be honest, I forget how absurd it can get. Oh, pretty absurd. Instead of 1866, we can go all the way to 3000. But you could spend a whole bunch of money on this memory, and they'll gladly take your money. But you're not going to notice that much difference on the performance of the computer. Well, as you can see, there's been some price fluctuations on some of this stuff. That's the nice thing about PC Part Picker, is that it tracks the prices on some of these components and can alert you when there's one heck of a sale on some of these things. Well, as you can see, it's really cheap here. Wow, 166. That's the winner. I paid a lot more. I paid a lot more when I bought my motherboard. In fact, I have a video that shows exactly what I paid. You can go back and look at it. Oh well, I wanted it when it was fresh and new. I didn't want to wait. Alright, so now we're up on storage. So, let's see. Since we know that a single terabyte drive is not going to be appropriate for this computer, let's go with, say, 2 terabytes, and we'll get a pair of them. Western Digital's Black Series, which are 7200 RPM drives, and these are hybrid drives also, so they've got flash memory in them to help with their performance. As you can see, this one has 64 megs of cache, so they're pretty good. They're faster overall in terms of what they're able to provide than the Caviar Blues, depending on the applications that you use. You know, the cache can help you if it's something that you're accessing frequently and it's lots of little files. But if it's going to be really big video files or really big graphics, you're not going to notice that much of a difference. But they don't make Caviar Blues in this size, so for a consumer desktop, it's pretty much the Black Series or nothing. And the drives aren't that expensive. 124 for 2 gigabytes. Or I'm sorry, I'm showing my age. 2 terabytes. They have SATA 3 connectors, so they connect to the computer at 6 gigabits. So they'll be nice and quick. And the only thing faster than these drives would be the M.2 connector. And if you want to, right now M.2 SSDs are still a little on the expensive side, but the prices are going to come down. And when they do, the M.2 is waiting there for an SSD drive to be put in there. Solid state drives are great. I recommend them if you're planning on doing something where you read data a lot, but you don't write too much. They're fantastic. Alright, so now for the bad news. The GPU. The priority was that this computer has to be able to drive, at the very least, 3 displays. We know that it's going to be pushing out 1080p video. It has to be able to do all these things, not miss a beat. There's only one card I can think of that I would recommend. And I use a predecessor of this exact card myself, the GeForce GTX 980. I'm currently using a GTX 780 Ti to record this video, and I use it in all my gaming videos. And people are always saying, wow, how do you get those frame rates? I paid the money for the big GeForce card. It is absolutely worth it. Notice the video memory. So if you're sitting here doing graphical editing, and in particular, this applies to people who might be, say, fans of the Adobe Creative Suite. Adobe is extremely popular with artists, Photoshop, for example. And Adobe makes use of the technology which is built into the GeForce cards, in particular the CUDA cores. The thinking is that a single little processor, you could make it really beefy, but it's still a single processor. So instead you could have lots of little processors, and they process things concurrently. So your one main chip chops up a job and says, all right, you render this, you render this, you render this, you render this, and then all the little guys turn in their work at the same time. And it's as though, by working as a team, that you had something bigger or more powerful than you actually do. Now, in that example, I'm only using 4 CUDA cores as an example. The GeForce GTX 980 actually has over 2,000 of them. So imagine that, 2,000 little cores all working as a team. That's why the card's so big. And the Adobe software is able to take advantage of that. So you can have extremely accelerated rendering and video editing, Adobe Premiere, Photoshop, Fireworks, generate your vector images, do all your exports. You'll be able to leverage all of this if you're using something that's CUDA aware. Right now, I think Creative Suite is the only artistic application I'm aware of, but hopefully some of the free alternatives will start taking advantage of the CUDA cores, because it's a great resource for the computer, for floating point calculations. Let's see. Now let's go ahead and pick our case. There's one case in particular that really struck my eye. In fact, I'm planning on getting one of these myself. Now, because of the motherboard that we chose and the role that this computer has to play, we're going to go ahead and go with an ATX full tower. And one company in particular had one of the nicest full tower cases this year that I've seen. In fact, Hardware Canucks, which is a great channel, put out an excellent in-depth review. I'll go ahead and link it in the description of this video so you can go ahead and see what I saw that you might find as interesting as I did. And it's from Phanteks, the Enthoo Pro. This is actually not that expensive. I'm surprised. It's only $199, so about $100 for a nice full tower ATX. It's got plenty of space and features. Hardware Canucks explains it so much better than I ever could. So enjoy their video, and it'll tell you all about the Enthoo Pro ATX full tower case. But it looks like it's worth the money to me. It's cheaper than the last one that I bought. Now, for a power supply. The power supply is going to be determined chiefly by the GPU that we've chosen. And NVIDIA will tell you 500 watts is the absolute minimum. Although, if you pick only 500 watts, well, hopefully you don't have any drives or anything else spinning up. So I'm going to say we're going to add a bit to that. Instead of 500 watts, let's go with 750. And let's go with a gold-rated power supply so that we have the best power efficiency we can. Corsair is a personal favorite of mine, so the Corsair CSM 750 should fit the bill just nicely. Again, like I said, this is 880 plus gold certified. It's a semi-modular ATX power supply, so you have the cables for powering the motherboard built in, but all the other cables, say for powering SATA devices or powering various other components like PCIe or things of that nature, you'll simply plug in the ones that you need. So you don't have any extra cables in the case that are not currently in use. Now for optical drives, this is purely optional and it's up to you. So here let's go ahead and I'll err on the side of caution and say maybe they want to have a Blu-ray writer. And let's see, little gold star floats to the bottom. Their stuff's usually really cheap. But LG is pretty reliable, so well, I feel comfortable recommending them. I've used them before. I'm kind of agnostic when it comes to burners. They all seem about the same, so I usually just go with whichever is cheapest. And LG is a big established name, so there should be no problems there. For operating system, I'll leave that blank. I have a wild guess that my friend will probably be choosing some flavor of Windows, but I don't know if he's going with Windows 7 or 8. So let me throw out this caveat. Windows 7 recently discontinued the sales and support of the Home Premium and below editions of Windows, and the only Windows 7 edition, if that's the way you want to go, currently being marketed by Microsoft is Windows 7 Professional. However, in anticipation of the cutoff date, many OEM vendors purchased vast quantities of Windows 7 licenses because there are a lot of people that still don't like Windows 8, me for example. I won't install that on my computers. In fact, I prefer Linux, but some of my applications are Windows, and I don't want to deal with wine sometimes, and so I do have a copy of Windows on one of my computers. So if you want to get Windows Home Premium, because you want to save some money, because it's only about $99, and not deal with Windows 8, buy it now before they run out, because once they run out, they're gone. Microsoft is not supplying those anymore. So monitors, that'll be up to him, external storage, everything else. So we have all of our basics. We have a case, motherboard, power supply, CPU, fan, storage, optical drives. Everything's ready to go. So there's the bad news. 1878, and that's assuming that you're able to get all the mail-in rebates. Some rebates are better than others. I've seen one, I won't name the company, but it ticked me off because they said, oh, you can get a $50 rebate. And then I looked, oh, but the rebate's only available from a credit card. I was like, what? Yeah, you have to sign up for our credit card, and then we'll send you a prepaid card, and you'll spend the money off of that card, but we'll charge you every month for having a card, and then you can refill it at your leisure. And I'm like, oh, give me a break, you know. So I have to sign up for a credit card to get my rebate. To heck with that. So often, you know, when they make them too onerous, I usually don't mail in the rebates. So I'm not signing up for somebody's credit card just to get $50. I mean, heck, Walmart will give you a better deal. Not that I recommend Walmart; they're not very union friendly. Darn Walmart. Oh well. So this is basically our computer here. So we've got all of our components, and this should be good for building a PC. Pick your favorite operating system and load her up. And it should be able to do all the things that my friend was looking to do for his wife's new machine. I'll go ahead and I'll link this system build in the description of this video. So have a good time, and see you next time on Joe's Technology.